Hey friends, you know what's kind of cool? I just realized I was playing around with this. Uh, so it's a Sony headphones, and I was playing around with the mic. And if I move, I can't really hear anything. I was just surprised by how good not how good, how good the mic is at picking up sounds that's only in a very short distance. But when I turn it back up, you can't really hear much. So the range is so narrow. I would have expected it to be wider. Anyway, Happy New Year. Happy 2023. Welcome to the new year. How are you guys feeling? I am doing all right. I am pretty excited about the essays that I'm working on. I made some really good progress on one. I haven't quite finished the one that I'm working on today, but I just wanted to make a video before I'm done, I guess. I'm gonna go to bed. It's like 1 a.m. I haven't been sleeping too well because I've had like calls and stuff late at night, which were pretty good. I have a bunch of things in my pipeline. I have like clients, I'm recording videos with other people, going on podcasts. So it's shaping up to be an active start. And I've been sprinting, like physically sprinting. And so I've done that like, so what I'm doing with that is I'm trying to it's basically like high intensity workouts in a short period of time, and it feels good. I did two sets earlier. Like I just go downstairs from my house and I go to like the nearby, just a stretch of path, just run from one bus stop to the next. I sprint as fast as I can, rest for a couple of minutes, sprint back, and I feel pretty good. I've only done it like 4 times maybe, and like 2 sets the last couple of times, so like 6 sets. I'm not counting super closely, but yeah, I'm happy with my sprinting. I want to keep doing it. I feel like I'm getting more in tune with my body again. I think after I published working on my book for like 2 years, I really uh I got all stressed and tight and lost my appetite and didn't uh just didn't feel like myself. And I don't feel like I have the energy to go to the gym, or I don't know, sprinting just felt like my thing right now, and I'm excited to keep doing it. And what else? So the essays are the main things that I'm working on. I might do some videos about the essays that I have in mind. I'm also pretty excited about reaching out to more Twitter friends to make YouTube videos with. So you might have seen I just uploaded one yesterday or the day before with Luli, who's a dear friend, and she is so fun to talk to. And we were talking about writer's block. And yeah, I would like to talk with more of my Twitter friends. I would like to keep doing more essays. What else is there to say? I I've been reading. I've been reading this book called The Silk Roads by Frank Copernan. I don't know if I got his last name right. And it's pretty interesting. It's like a history of the Silk Roads and like Middle Central Asia. You know, and I've been learning there are all these like I didn't realize that I didn't know what the name of like the steppe nomads god was. It's like Tengris. I'm still not completely sure, but like I was surprised that I've thought of myself as someone who's always been interested in mythology and all of that, and I'm even kind of familiar with some like South American deities and African deities, and like Inuma Ilish and all those kind of relatively obscure pantheons. But I somehow hadn't heard of Tengris. Am I getting that right? Tengris, Tengri. Worship of Tengri is called Tengrism, right? Uh, yeah, the national god of the Go Turks, and yeah, there's a bunch of history there that I'm curious to continue learning more about. And so I was reading a bunch of history that's like, the Ottomans and the Persians and the fall of Rome into Byzantine. And the main thing I feel like I got out of reading like the big broad scope of history, right? And so I read the details, but I forget the details. But I remember how I felt reading those things. And what I felt was really the sense of how windows of opportunity can be so narrow. Like there are these brief periods of time where you really get the chance to make substantial change. And we've all lived through COVID now, right? And we've seen how a global pandemic is in some sense a window of opportunity for some people in some domains, right? I'm not saying that everybody got to do everything they wanted, and there are some things that you can't do, but there's something about a window of opportunity in a broader sense that I guess makes people more receptive to the possibility of change. And I was just reading about like when there's a famine, right? Then there's an opportunity for leadership change in back in those days. And probably even now, right? Even now, so we haven't had like serious famines in a long time because of not just because of like improved agriculture, but also like the ability to transport food in emergencies to wherever, which is a great triumph of humanity, really, that we don't talk about. Um, but as climate change happens, and I do think we will see some shit go down. There things will change, So it's like, it's funny to inhabit this body in this period of time of change where even now I don't feel like people have learned the lessons of COVID, for example. And I think if you look back at history, you'll find that that's also the case. Like one of the things we do learn from history is that people tend not to learn from history, right? So you can look, but having lived through COVID, you can now look up like World War I, World War II, and you can read those accounts. And even like I remember reading about the Black Death, right, which is like in the 1200s, 1300s, and I remember reading about it from a very intellectual, like, oh wow, everyone was dying in the streets. That sounds terrible. But once you've lived through the societal change, right, like mass panic or mass, just like the mood and the vibe of society changes. I remember reading in World War I and II, people were saying, World War I especially, people were saying the world had gone mad. And when I read that sentence, I'm like, I wonder what that's like. I think I get it intellectually, but to experience it is really something. And so another thing that happened was I remember reading about the Japanese occupation. So I told this story a bunch of times. Like when I was in school as a kid, I would read about the Japanese occupation of Singapore in World War II, and I would be horrified. I would be shocked. I'd be like, holy shit, what the fuck? Like that's possible? Like wartime happens, people invade, they change all of society. The old leadership is gone, the flag changes. You have to learn a new language, you have to sing a new song in school. People are getting beaten in the street, people are getting murdered, and just worse, right? And I remember being horrified by that as a kid, and I felt like my peers in school did not seem as troubled, and I did not understand why that was. And I remember being drawn to reading about like ancient civilizations and ancient like super volcanoes and asteroids and all these very rare but consequential events. And lately, I've been wondering to what degree that has been shaped by my very early childhood experiences. So my family had domestic helpers. And so it's a very large family, so we had a helper to help us out. And apparently, I was raised very much by the helpers. So there were two that were significant. Like the first one, her name is like Saroja. I don't even remember her or know her because I was like infant basically, and she left at some point, right? And I don't remember that. And then the second one, her name was Parames. And there are pictures of me. There's like at least one picture of me that I've seen where I'm like she's bathing me. I'm a child. She's like washing me, and I'm smiling and I'm so happy and I'm hugging her. And there aren't really pictures of me looking that happy hugging either of my parents. And I've been thinking about that a lot recently. Like and like when my dad was younger, right? So my dad married twice. I'm from the second marriage. When my dad married the first time, he had his first son and then he had a daughter, and that daughter died in a like vehicle accident, like as she was a pedestrian and she got hit. And this is like before, long before I was born, right? But like my dad did have the trauma of losing a child to an accident. And then when he remarried and he married my mom, my older brother, he got very, very sick when he was very, very young. And he got like, he was like convulsing in fits and had like a super high fever and I'm not sure what. And I think my older siblings say that my brother wasn't quite the same after that. I don't know. And my mom had that freaky experience of almost losing a child, I think, or just having seeing the child in a really terrible state. And I don't think I fully appreciated how much those experiences must have shaped my parents and their parenting and their relationship with me. And so now as an adult, recently, like just before New Year's, my wife and I went to have dinner with my parents, and it was great. We had a nice time. They are getting old, but they are cute, sweet, whatever. They're no. I used to be terrified of my dad. When I was a teenager and he was an adult, and he was just really this stern, authoritarian, violent, angry man. To me, that's what it felt like to me. And I, like I have to then kind of like contextualize that against every other parent in Singapore. Would I say my parents were abusive? Nah, no. Within the like bell curve of what it was like growing up in my generation, it's all right. It was the norm, I would say. And I don't resent my parents for who they were or what they did. I think they tried their best, and I think they are continuing to try their best, right? And I haven't been able to have the conversation with them specifically about how I felt when I was younger. I almost don't want to hear what they have to say about that. Like I don't know. I'm still figuring this out. But like we have a nice time now when we're together, and as older adults and younger adult, I feel like now that they no longer need to worry about my safety, they no longer need to worry about like my economic future and my status. Like all of that shit's kind of taken care of, so they can relax and we can actually relate to each other as people, right? I remember once seeing my dad just hanging, like I had a friend over, and like I think we would have been like 20, 22 maybe. I had a friend over, and my dad and my friend are just having such a fun conversation and like drinking beers and stuff. And I thought, I never got to have that with my dad, and I think part of that was that he felt that as my dad, he was responsible for my upbringing in some way, and that kind of robbed me of some of what should have been a father-son uh, experience. I don't know. And so, I feel like I was raised by domestic helpers and they left, and that was like an abandonment trauma of some kind. I don't remember I was like 4, 3, right? And I remember being anguished. I remember feeling like the world was, just I had one person that I was bonded to, and she's gone forever, right? And the rest of my family, I don't think had much sympathy for that, and I just felt anguished and alone and abandoned. And I found myself and I raised myself in books. And I read a lot of books. And, you read about all these other people who've been through so much worse, right? I remember reading about, just like there's this book by Judith Kerr called When Hitler Stole Pink Rabbit. And I must have been like 9 or 10 when I read that. And I was like, holy shit. Like, holy shit. And yeah, just reading about all sorts of stuff, getting perspective, and where am I going with all that? Oh yeah, I guess I think that having experienced some sense of abandonment as a child made me more receptive to understanding or considering the reality of what the Japanese occupation must have been like. Like to other kids who might not have felt that kind of abandonment when they were younger, reading about the subsequent thing does not seem like as real. It's history, but it doesn't feel real. Like it's something that happened a long time ago to people who are not really people. That it's something different when you see, uh, when you live through stuff, I guess, and when you meet people who have lived through stuff, and you see it in their eyes, right? You see what they're afraid of and what they are worried about, and all of those things. Anyway, this is dragging on a little bit. I just wanted to do a monthly update, right? And yeah, that's where I'm at, right? I feel pretty good thinking about myself, my feelings, my history, my relationship with my family, my relationship with myself. It's helped me think about just how I've conducted myself in the world, and how, there's a bunch of things that I think didn't make so much sense about me to me when I was a teenager that just make more sense now. Like I just understand myself better, and it feels good to understand myself better, because it was so anxiety inducing, frustrating, confusing, overwhelming. Nothing, a lot of stuff just didn't make sense in my teens. And at like 32, it's all starting to come together. And who knows, maybe in my 40s and 50s, I'll be like, ha, that 32-year-old guy thought he knew what was going on, what a joke. Maybe, we'll see, I don't know. But I'm happy to be here, and I'm happy to say out loud whatever's on my mind, and I hope that's helpful to some of you. I'm sure it'll be helpful to me. I mainly make these videos for my future self. But, it's also nice to hang out. So, take care. See you guys around. Done.